you so much for joining us. I'm standing here with someone pretty important to our organization. You said you are.
My name's Tracy Weatherby. I'm the Chief Impact Officer for Second Silicon Valley.
And there's a lot of hubbub, there's a lot of people here. What are we doing here? Can you tell us about what's going on in food banking right now?
Well, I would say that the most important thing for people to understand is that the need for food in our community still remains really, really high. You know, during the pandemic, we started serving twice as many people, and we are still serving nearly twice as many people, nearly 500,000 people every month, just for our food bank. And so, you know, people wonder why that could be, because there's not a lot of unemployment, but we live in a very high-cost area. And so even people who are working one or two jobs have trouble, you know, making everything fit together, being able to pay that rent, being able to pay for the child care. And so often food is the first thing that gets compromised. And especially with the inflation that we had last year, a lot of people are really struggling to make ends meet. At the same time, food banks have a lot less resources than we did during the pandemic. There are almost no government resources, and even our donors, you know, have scaled back because they don't see the high level of need. They don't always see the big drive-throughs, even though they need to be still there.
Yeah. What is having access to nutritious food? Why is that so important?
Yeah. Well, nutritious food is the base of everyone having anything, right? Without your health, which is fed by nutritious food, we talk about food as medicine, it is. You know, it's difficult to work, it's difficult to be healthy, to learn, to grow. So this is, you know, the crucial first component for any community. And so at Second Harvest Silicon Valley, 60% of what we give out is fresh produce. And we are able to have amazing relationships with farmers, locally and throughout the state, the California Association of Food Banks, that allows us to provide our community with beautiful fresh produce.
That's amazing. What are we doing here today? Why is everyone here?
Well, you may have heard that the Congress is trying to decide about the budget for the year ahead. The House has passed a bill, the Senate is going to be weighing in on that, and we'll be seeing what comes out of that. But from our perspective, one of the biggest impacts is that there is a threat to reduce assistance to people who are hungry by somewhere around 30%. There's a possibility of cutting what's called SNAP or CalFresh by either $200 or $300 billion. And this will have a huge impact for our community.
I've heard it called food stamps, I've heard it called CalFresh, I've heard it called SNAP. Can you tell us what it is? Yeah. Help us out.
Well, it's all the same thing. Way back when, it used to be called food stamps because it was literally stamps. Now sometimes people call it EBT because there's an electronic benefits card that provides money to people to spend at the grocery store. Nationally, it's called SNAP, which is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. But California likes to rebrand all federal programs, so in California, it's called CalFresh.
Okay. And who can apply for CalFresh?
Anyone can apply for CalFresh. You need to, you know, verify that you are low income after relevant deductions. You need to be a citizen or be on one of a very small number of visas that qualify. But if anyone ever wants to know if they qualify, they can call Second Harvest of Silicon Valley, and our staff will screen you to see if you might qualify for CalFresh.
And our staff speaks many languages too, I remember.
Many languages.
Learning that.
We have the capabilities to use any language, but we also have in-house staff always that are speaking Chinese, Vietnamese, Spanish, as well as.
So why are these proposed cuts so troubling?
Well, for every meal that a food bank can provide, SNAP provides 9 meals. So if those funds are cut, there's no way that food banks can fill the gap. So SNAP and CalFresh is a root cause solution for hunger, and then food banks are supposed to fill in. If the root cause of kind of systemic solution is reduced, it's going to have a really, you know, terrible harm to our community.
How do you think your staff work together to address food insecurity?
Well, you know, as I just mentioned, one thing is that many food banks, including ours, work to sign people up for SNAP or CalFresh. That's always the first thing we do is screen people. Are you available for this benefit? If they are not, or if that benefit is not high enough to meet their needs, then we'll refer them to some of our food distributions where they can get help.
And how do the five Bay Area food banks work together?
Oh my God, this is my favorite thing about food banking. It's the most collaborative industry you've ever seen. We all work together as nonprofits in solidarity, whether it's in advocacy, sharing information about how we do our programs, sharing information about how we do our food sourcing. These are our partners in this work, and we work together constantly to ensure we're having the most impact for our communities.
Amazing. So we're here, we're about ready to get started on this press conference. We've got quite a few CEOs joining us today.
Yes.
What do you think they'll be talking about?
Well, I think they're really going to be trying to illuminate the challenges if this federal bill is passed. The one other thing I would add is while we are most focused on hunger, there are other impacts for our community in this bill, like reductions to Medicaid, which will also impact people's budgets and ability to stay healthy. So I think that you're going to see a real focus on the hunger programs, but also an acknowledgement that this bill in general is incredibly challenging for our community and would have real harms.
Thank you so much for all your insights. I can't believe you have all of that in your head. It's just so much to worry about, so much to think about, but thank you for joining us, and keep watching. We're going to be doing our press conference in just a few minutes. Thank you.
Sound check. Food Bank press conference.
Yeah, really. It was so easy.
So this one, we can just attach it directly into the camera. We don't need to use the adapter. Yeah, because this one has like the cage for a reason. So just go ahead and listen in. And usually the settings are on input 1, test. Okay, let me go right. Left side. Now you hear it?
Yeah, but it's like
Really low. Okay. So then channel 2 should be on both channels. Channel.
You know what? Let's just move it because I'm gonna also I want to be able to move fast with the press conference. So
So
let's
just bring the adapter.
let's use that one.
Here you go. is everything?
I let him in. Oh, there he is. Yeah, I know, that's right.
I would like it if they did.
Good morning. I just want to welcome you all to Second Harvest of Silicon Valley, one of 5 food banks serving the Bay Area. Know you're covering a lot of important stories today, so we really appreciate you taking the time to come out today and tell this one because it affects so many people right here in Silicon Valley. We're going to talk about the Federal Assistance Program, SNAP, which is Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. You may also hear it referred to as CalFresh, EDT, and some people still refer to it as food stamps. Whatever the case, it is a lifeline to millions of people across the U.S., including here in Silicon Valley. This morning, you're going to hear directly from the 5 food banks who serve the Bay Area. You'll hear from all of the leaders of those organizations, Leslie Bacho, CEO of Second Harvest of Silicon Valley, Caitlin Sly, President and CEO of Food Bank of Contra, Costa, and Solano, Allison Goodwin, President and CEO of Redwood Empire Food Bank up near Sonoma County, Tanis Crosby, Executive Director, San Francisco Marin Food Bank, and Reggie Young, Executive Director, Alameda County Community Food Bank. After the CEO speak, we'll be glad to take you around if you need B-roll and happy to do one-on-one interviews as well. Thank you again for being here, and I'll turn it over to Leslie Bacho.
Good morning, I'm Leslie Bacho. I'm the CEO at Second Harvest of Silicon Valley. Thank you all for being here today. Today, we are coming together as 5 food banks speaking with one voice because the cuts that are on the table in Congress are the greatest rollback of food assistance that we have seen in our modern U.S. history. What is on the table in Congress is, on the House side, it's $300 billion in cuts. On the Senate side, it's $211 billion in cuts. And really, any way you slice it, these cuts would be devastating to the people we serve and to our communities. These historic cuts are coming at a time when we are already serving a historic level of need. SNAP isn't just a line item, it is a real lifeline to 40 million Americans who depend on it to be able to buy groceries from their local grocery stores and put food on the table. Here in the Bay Area, it provides food to 675,000 people. Even in this very wealthy community, we have so many people who rely on SNAP for support. When I go out to distribution sites, I meet so many families who are working and they are still struggling to be able to pay their rent and put food on the table. We meet seniors who are living on fixed incomes and really struggling to be able to afford their prescriptions and still pay for food. At our school sites, we meet teachers who are worried about kids coming to school hungry. SNAP really matters here, and it also matters in cities and rural communities across the U.S. One thing we know know is that when SNAP gets cut, we see our lines get longer. We saw this during the pandemic when people received extra SNAP benefits. As soon as those benefits went away, we saw an instant increase in our line. And at Second Harvest of Silicon Valley, we are already serving 1 in 6 of our neighbors. I want you to think about that for a moment. Even in this very wealthy community, 1 in 6 people are relying on Second Harvest for help. So we are already at our max. When you look at this at the federal level, the numbers are really staggering. These cuts are the equivalent of 9.5 billion meals. And those cuts alone are more than the entire charitable food system is providing today. At food banks, we are very efficient, we are very committed, but there is no food bank in the country that has enough staff, funds, and food to be able to make up this gap. Today, you're going to hear from 5 leaders, and we all see hunger in our communities firsthand. We are here to really sound the alarm and to say very clearly that we cannot let this bill pass. We cannot endure these kinds of cuts that will be cause just irreversible damage to our community. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Caitlin.
Thank you, Leslie. I'm Caitlin Sly, CEO of the Food Bank of Contra, Costa, and Solano. And at the Food Bank of Contra, Costa, and Solano, we see low-income families every day whose budgets are already stretched thin by rising food, housing, and gas prices. And now their essential lifeline, SNAP, is being targeted by government cuts. And I want to take a moment to highlight the real, true-life stories and the human impact that SNAP has on our local community. And we hear a few direct quotes from people that we've helped enroll in SNAP benefits. The first is Maria, who lives in Antioch in a household of 5. She shared, "I'm a single mother of 4, and I barely have enough to cover housing and necessities. I've really struggled to put food on the table, and I was so lucky to get SNAP. Without it, I don't know how I'd be able to afford groceries or feed my children. It's such a great resource for people who are in need of help." Similarly, Justin shared with us, "SNAP saved my life when I was starving and homeless. Within a day and a half of getting approved, I had food in my belly and a chance." These are not isolated stories. They're representing millions of everyday experiences of the people who use SNAP in our community. And we can't forget where we live. The Bay Area is the 4th largest economy and one of the wealthiest regions in the world. It's a place where earning a little over $100,000 a year as a single-person household makes you low income. And that's why hundreds of thousands of people right here in the Bay Area rely on SNAP and food banks to make ends meet. That includes people who work and are looking for work, but still only qualify for the minimum benefit of $23 a month. It's seniors living on fixed incomes who are having to choose every day between paying for food or paying for their medications. It's children that are coming to school hungry because their SNAP benefits ran out before the end of the month. And it's people with disabilities who have double the barriers to both accessing work and accessing food. So in a region defined by its wealth, it's truly unconscionable that we contemplate SNAP cuts at this time, especially when people are already skipping meals, struggling to make ends meet, and where 1 in 4 children in California rely on SNAP. SNAP is not just a safety net, it is a foundation for stability and, most importantly, dignity. So when considering cuts to SNAP, we urge you to remember families like Maria, whose children would go hungry if it weren't for SNAP, and unhoused folks like Dustin, who were able to rebuild their lives because of access to this critical resource. The Food Bank of Contra, Costa, and Solano, we've been around for 50 years. We've weathered many crises before, whether it's 2008 and the Great Recession or 2020 and COVID, and every single time our federal government has come through to help us weather those storms. Unfortunately, right now, our federal government is creating a crisis. And so we need our entire community to join with us to
rectify these cuts and ensure we all live in a place where nobody goes hungry. And I'll pass it along to Allison with Redwood Empire. Good morning. So you've heard the impact that colleagues have already shared on the threats to the SNAP program being, cut and diminished in our community, which really is something that we cannot let happen. We're really asking our community members, colleagues, elected officials, everybody with a voice to scream loudly alongside us, happily alongside us, to say our community deserves better. And the people that turn to us for help for supplemental groceries are also relying on this safety net of services of where they can go shopping like the rest of us choose to. So we want to be able to go into our local market and local grocery store and select the items that are relevant to our family, and having the economic impact that this would have is pretty severe. So you've heard about, sort of the heart stories from Caitlin, which again, Redwood Empire has examples of that as well, but we're going to talk economics. So for those that are not led by their heart and are led by their wallet, we want them to listen up too. So really, the economic impact of those benefits, $1 of SNAP is generating $1.80 of economic benefit to that local community. So not only are those families with young children given money into their pocket to purchase groceries, those dollars are going back out to those local retailers, grocers, food producers, the drivers that get it there, procurement teams. It really is about local jobs and the community benefiting from these SNAP benefits. So not only is it the family going into the grocery store with those resources, it's that entire infrastructure of that local community because of those benefits. Farm workers are some of the most vulnerable populations that we already have in our community, and in Sonoma County that hits super close to home. It's local food. It's their dollars that they're enrolled in SNAP, and it's also their workers that are impacted by not having the food procured locally and not having that job to fall back on. As colleagues mentioned, food banks can't really meet this need. If SNAP benefits are cut so substantially, we too are supplemental groceries. We can't promise that we are everything that any family could ever need in terms of filling the gap. We need school meals, we need SNAP benefits, we need food banks thriving for families to be safe and secure, and that's just with their basic health needs. So again, really urging about speaking alongside us about this important issue. There's a total threat to food supply that's coming from all directions, and SNAP is one of those. So we really encourage everybody to think about the economics, think about the heart impact, and think about the health of our community as we rally alongside us. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Allison. My name is Candace Crosby, I serve as Executive Director of SF-Marin Food Bank, and we're here because we're raising the alarm. We're raising the alarm because these cuts are being rushed through. They're being jammed through. This is not the usual order of business. This is happening swiftly, and it is cruel. These cuts, as you heard, are going to be devastating to our community. But let's level set, because SNAP is not only effective, SNAP is not only helpful to our local economies, SNAP is the single most effective anti-poverty tool that we have in this country. And it works. In the pandemic, it was used as a tool to fight poverty and hunger. And SNAP benefits combined with other policies meant that in the pandemic, child poverty in this country was cut in half. It was cut in half. So we're raising the alarm because we know what's at stake, and we also know what kind of difference policies can make. This policy is going to leave people hungry. This policy is going to target refugees, asylum seekers. It will mean that in our community, there is clear and present danger for 175,000 households in this Bay Area to lose SNAP benefits. Like that. 175,000.
who are already struggling, those folks who are already making 200% of the federal poverty limit for one person, that's $29,000 a year. 175,000 will lose benefits like that. We are sounding the alarm because this is unacceptable. We are sounding the alarm because hunger is not a personal choice. It is a policy choice. And this choice is unacceptable. Right now, our elected representatives are proposing devastating cuts that make no sense. And I want to be clear that in my community of San Francisco Marin, we already have record high hunger. In December 2023, a report identified there was record high hunger in San Francisco. December 2023. That was before the enduring cuts of inflation. That was before the ending of all of the pandemic services that ended last week. And that was before these cuts that are upon us today that are completely cruel, reprehensible, and avoidable. Again, policy is the cause of hunger, not personal choice. We can make a different policy choice. That is what is in front of our politicians, and my colleague Reggie will speak more about our urgent call to action.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today. My name is Reggie Young, and I'm the Executive Director of the Alameda County Community Food Bank. It is an interesting time that we're in this moment. I have a direct message for all of our elected officials, all of our members of Congress, and all of our senators. And that message is that on behalf of all of the people who receive SNAP, their families, and all of the businesses that are supported by their dollars, do not do this. It boggles my mind that in the wealthiest country in the world, that we would actively dismantle our most successful hunger relief program and take away vital resources for our communities that need it the most in order to support tax cuts for the wealthiest members of our communities. To each and every one of us, that is unacceptable. What does it look like in our community to have people on the margins actually thrive? Well, we know it is not this bill, and it's not the proposed cuts that we're seeing in this moment. My colleagues talked about the impacts that this will actually have here in the Bay Area. But the reality is, it goes well beyond the Bay Area. It goes well beyond the state of California. This will impact families, individuals, people who are concerned about their communities, the businesses that support those peoples. It'll impact them all over this country. And that should be personal to all of us, because that's personal to me. I think about my family, who's been in this country since before it was called the United States. My family members in West Monroe, Louisiana. My family members in Oklahoma. My family members in Montgomery, Alabama. My family members here in California. What does it look like to them when their businesses in their communities that nourishes them go away? We know what that looks like because we've seen it before. It means they will not have access to the basic resources that they need in their communities. They will have to go further into other communities to access those resources. And to me as an individual, that is unacceptable. And that should be unacceptable to you as well. Many of our families came to this country to achieve the American dream, whatever version of that actually means to them. These cuts makes that dream a lot less accessible for our communities throughout this country. The good news is that it's not over, but time is running out. So what are we going to do as a community What are we going to do as individuals who care about our families? What are we going to do in this moment to ensure that our communities have access to the resources, not only that they need, but that they deserve? This is our time to leverage our voice, the power of our pen, to share with our elected officials that we will not stand for this, that our communities deserve better, because they do. It takes a collective voice. It takes all of our voices to ensure that our community is cared for in the way that they deserve. And we can do it, but we have to do it together. So on behalf of all of us, we ask you, we urge you to stand alongside us and ensure that our community does not have to just survive, that our community can actually thrive. And we reject these cuts. And with that, I will pass it back to Leslie.
Thank you all for being here today and for shining a light on this issue. In a region where billionaires exist side by side with child hunger, we have to decide what kind of community we want to be. As food banks, we are committed to serving anyone who needs food. We are committed to showing up every day, but we cannot replace a gutted federal safety net. This is not just about hunger, it is also about dignity, and it's about stability, and it's about the basic human right to survive in a country that has the means to do better. As Reggie said, this is a choice, and we are standing together to say this is the wrong choice. We urge Congress to reject this devastating bill and to focus on protecting the programs that help keep our communities fed, stable, and strong. We now have all CEOs available if you would like to interview any of us. We also have B-roll available if that's helpful to you. We also have staff here who can give you a tour of the food bank. And we also have someone here, Malin Tan, who is the Director of Research and Strategic Initiatives from the California Association of Food Banks, who can also speak to events at the state level. Thank you again.